And against the backdrop of a concrete crisis, record migrant arrivals and looming by-elections, Rishi Sunak faced his first Prime Minister's questions in 7 weeks today.
And the clash in the Commons did not disappoint, with Keir Starmer claiming that the Conservatives scrapped school building work that had been planned by Labour, and likening Sunak to a cowboy builder, which the Prime Minister branded as political opportunism.
This crisis is the inevitable result of 13 years of cutting corners, botched jobs, sticking plaster politics. It's the sort of thing you expect from cowboy builders, saying that everyone else is wrong, everyone else is to blame, protesting that they've done an effing good job, even as the ceiling falls in. The difference, Mr. Speaker, is that in this case, the cowboys are running the country. Isn't he ashamed that after 13 years of Tory government, children are cowering under steel supports, stopping their classroom roof falling in?
This is exactly the kind of political opportunism that we've come to expect from Captain Hindsight over here. Before today, he's never once raised this issue with me across this dispatch box.
Well, joining us now in the studio is Tim Montgomerie, founder of Conservative Home. Thanks for joining us, Tim.
My pleasure.
Political opportunism or simply the truth?
Well, that's the big debate that's happening inside the government at the moment, and I don't know the answer to this, but some people are wondering whether Gillian Keegan, the Education Secretary, now famous with that hot mic remark, jumped the gun. Whether this really is a serious problem, as she thought, or whether, because she didn't inform the rest of the government when she made, the announcement that she did, and whether, or actually there is a real problem here and she's the hero of it, or actually if a little bit more caution was in order for Whitehall to make a sort of a deeper assessment of how big this problem is. So it'll probably take concrete experts rather than political commentators like myself to make the judgment, but that's the debate now. Have we spooked people too much, or actually is Gillian Keegan the hero of this?
I think that's a really, really good question, actually. When you look at the numbers, I said earlier, the 156 schools affected, 52 have been mitigated against, also 104 mitigations taking place. When you actually contrast that to the number of schools there are in this country, it's a tiny percentage.
Yeah.
And I do wonder whether Gillian Keegan actually was right. She lowered the threshold, she did the right thing. And actually, I've grown to like her because she says it as it is.
And she swears.
And she swears. I mean, actually, I think people around the country will resonate with her.
Well, it's by the way, Nadine Dorries, another Scouse woman that's been in the headlines recently. Lots of people don't like Nadine, but lots of other people love her because we all know the politicians, they speak in their carefully cautious way, and people don't necessarily think they're speaking from their hearts. They think they're giving a line to take. And both these Scouse Tory women, there's a quality about them that I think I was slow to pick up on, particularly with Gillian Keegan. But I think a lot of people, obviously, they're much more worried if you're a parent about what's going on in your school if you're affected. But I think there's an underlying respect for authenticity, because we don't have much of it in politics or in public life at the moment.
Yeah, I definitely agree on the authenticity point. But do you not think they scored an own goal by kind of advertising that 95% of schools are safe, but 5% of them might kill your children?
Yeah, well, it was Labour who've been very good at their social media game recently. They put out a sort of, you probably saw it, little line saying, shark didn't kill many people, most safe, or something like that, most beachgoers safe. And, I was talking to my sister, at the weekend, and, her school was safe. But she still worries about it. When it's your most precious child, in the world, going to a school, you don't want any doubt in your mind that they're going to be safe, and that's why this has such cut through. And I've sort of changed my mind in recent days. I thought the longer the Conservatives leave it, the more chance they have for something to turn up, and maybe they can turn around things. But I think I get a sense from friends, non-political friends in particular, a mounting anger at sort of one story after another coming in associated with this government. And my fear as a Conservative is the longer they leave it, the worse the defeat is going to be. And that seems to be another conversation taking place in the Conservative Party at the moment. And that's why I think I'm more and more of the view that the election will be earlier rather than later. So probably next May is the date I think we should pencil in rather than ink in to the diary.
And your thinking behind that is because you think that actually Rishi Sunak... Well, I mean, actually, there were some great lines. I have to say, I've missed PMQs. It's such a great sort of event television, actually. I thought there were some great lines in it as well.
I'm going to put you down as a geek for that.
Well, I am an unashamed geek, I know that. But just in terms of the lines, I thought Rishi Sunak, for once, I could see him actually meaning business. I thought he did a great job, actually. When he said energy bills down, inflation down, he said channel crossings down, sort of, and also economy up. I thought that was a fighting spirit. Also, when someone else actually said that about Labour, about the bankruptcy in Birmingham, saying the Labour Party cannot be allowed to bankrupt the country. This was feisty. It was the politicians back doing what they should be doing.
Yeah. Well, what we as speaking as a Conservative, what I think the Conservative activist is dying out for is exactly what you say. You know, on the energy debate we had yesterday, he kind of sat on the fence a bit. He didn't make it clear where he stood on onshore wind farms. Let's see some passion from him, you know, and again, not just once, but show the country you actually believe in something. Because if you're always sort of being the technocrat, that's not going to get you.
But he is a technocrat.
He's a technocrat, but we are not all one thing, are we? We are complicated people, and hopefully there's a little bit more multi-dimensionality to him, and we can get a little bit more sort of that fire that, I agree with you, we saw today.
OK, so fire and passion maybe was there today at midday at PMQs. But all of those things that you listed there about the economy, inflation, energy prices, Rishi didn't ultimately have any control over any of those things. And as far as them saying, you know, well, Labour, if Labour are in charge, they'll bankrupt the country. Look at what happened with Liz Truss a year ago yesterday.
Absolutely. Well, all I can say in defence of the Tories on Liz Truss is we did get rid of her within 6 weeks. You know, Labour kept Jeremy Corbyn for 5 years. And
as leader, not as PM.
And why didn't he become PM? Keir Starmer wanted him as Prime Minister, put him up for the election. The only reason he didn't become PM was because of the Conservatives.
Well, who did you put up? Instead, you lot. You lot over there chose the woman.
We did.
To run the country, not to just be leader, but to run the United Kingdom.
There's not a person watching this programme. There's not. Neither of you two have never made a mistake.
Okay.
It's not about whether you make a mistake. It's whether you put it. It's whether you put it right.
I've ruined the country.
Well, and I said
you make a fair point.
Did they make a mistake, or was she actually sort of hounded out of office? I think she went too fast, too fast.
Yeah.
Actually, she was a Conservative.
She was a Conservative, but some of us, David, I don't want to put an age on you, but we're old enough to remember Margaret Thatcher.
Indeed.
And Liz thought she was a Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher went into enormous detail before she did anything. She chose her battles. She talked to ministers. She consulted. She had people in her cabinet who disagreed with her. She argued with them.
Apart from the poll tax. Was that thought through?
As time went by, she got more arrogant and she stopped listening. But at the beginning, she was a serious Prime Minister. Liz Truss did the superficial part of Margaret Thatcher, the headline-grabbing stuff, but she never did what's the real hard yards of government. And that's why I'm afraid we learnt in those terrible 6 weeks she wasn't fit to be Prime Minister. But yes, we got it wrong, but I think we corrected it quickly. That's my only defence, even if I don't think Nikki's quite convinced.
Not quite, but I'll let you have it. Bringing it back to Rishi now. What do you think of him as a leader? I've never quite bought that he wanted to be in this position because he cares about the country, because he wants to lead people. I think that if they lose the
job,
he wanted it.
He wanted the job, but he didn't want it for the right reasons. And I believe that if they don't win the next general election, he won't stay on as leader. He will be flying away to California to a multi-million-pound salary. He didn't actually care about the people of the United Kingdom.
I can't disagree with you.
Really?
I'd love to, but I don't think I know anyone who thinks that if he does lose the next election, he will stay in this country. And it's a shame, really, because his story could have been a very wealthy man who didn't have to be here and serve the country, but wanted to give something to the country that, you know, had given him so much and his family so much. But somehow he hasn't communicated that. And whether you can, first impressions count. Whether he can turn it around over the next 12 months,
I was going to say,
I don't know.
Yes or no answer. Can he turn it around?
No.
Right.
Wonderful.
Well, that's pretty accurate to the point.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Thanks for joining us, Tim Montgomerie there.